found a tube, and the minute I opened it, the smell transported me through time.
This one's wife. You haven't got a clue. This one's wife likes to think that she understands people. She thinks that because her narcissism makes her understand that she is brilliant at everything, which includes understanding people. The fact is, she doesn't. She doesn't because she lacks the intelligence, the emotional empathy, and the software of her narcissism to be of the grade that would allow her to understand human beings, for instance, in the way that I do. Instead, she misfires, and she shows her clumsiness. She articulates what she believes a mother should be, but she doesn't actually behave like one, because either she doesn't have any children, as some people suspect, or that she does, but she spends very little time with them. And therefore her narcissism needs to invent what she believes being a mum is. And in her mind, being a mum is making fruit rainbows and then sending an email every night to the children to remind them of what a brilliant mum she is. That isn't about being a mother. And indeed, as I explained in the video earlier this week, she doesn't send an email every night. That was a load of bollocks made up in the moment. This one's wife attempts to be relatable. She wants to be both girl boss and bananatarian. She wants to be fashion icon and cosmetic wearer or non-wearer, dependent on circumstance. She wants to be craft person extraordinaire, cottage gardener. She wants to be the cook. She wants to be the wife. Occasionally, she's the thief and also the lover. She wants to be all things to all people. Author, politician, memoir writer, broadcaster, podcaster, content creator, producer, and so forth. And one moment, she wants to be the captain of industry, the titan of business, but then also the mum that looks after her children and prances around on a beach, writing 2025 into the sand. This is because of the chameleon nature of her narcissism, which determines that it is entirely appropriate for her to be whatever she needs to be in whatever particular moment in order to get to the prime aims. The result is, because, again, she's so overexposed, is a mishmash of supposed personalities that don't add up and none come across as authentic, despite her attempts to tell us she is authentic. The fact is that, once again, because she pursues such exposure, unlike certain other narcissists that don't, her attempts to be lots of different things at different times becomes exposed. So we see all of these various attempts and it just ends up a complete mess. It becomes a complete mess because people ask, what is she? What does she want to be? And moreover, when she attempts to be something, she fails because she doesn't know how to do it as a consequence of the absence of emotional empathy, a lack of intelligence, a lack of ability, a lack of talent, and a lack of experience. And therefore, as she shifts from one thing to another, which I've explained previously why she does that, not only do you see this array of different personalities, which make it seem like she's completely confused as to who she is, none of them are executed with any degree of competence. And we have another example of this. You'll have to try and keep the bile down as you listen to the arse-licking that comes from Tatler, because it's one of the supine publications. But it encapsulates how this one's wife doesn't have a bastard clue as to what she's doing. Clara Strunk writes, "This one's wife certainly knows how to captivate an audience." Well, it's more a case of people watching agog as there's another train wreck. Earlier this month, she officially launched her hotly anticipated, by who, As Ever line to much fanfare. In a newsletter sent to subscribers, this one's wife wrote, "As Ever started as a sign-off, but today I am thrilled to announce it is a welcome. More word salad." Finally, fans could get their hands on that famous raspberry preserve. You mean raspberry soup. Perfect for a romantic breakfast in bed. Yeah, if you want it dribbling all over your duvet cover or sheets. This one's wife recommended this on her website. It then bangs on about the various things and the supposed successful launch of the Netflix series With Love, Meghan, and reminds us that the vast majority of products sold out within half an hour. And while the offering clearly delighted people on the other side of the Atlantic, those in Britain who had hoped to recreate this one's wife's picture-perfect lifestyle were sadly disappointed. As ever, did not ship to Britain until now. This one's wife will have supporters in Britain, of course she does. But most people in Britain are either not interested in her or don't like her as a consequence of her behaviour and her treatment, particularly of the Queen. This one's wife regularly criticises Britain. She stays away, driven as you know, because her narcissism perceives the UK as being too great a threat to her control, resulting in her rejecting that. So that's why she doesn't attend. Her narcissism says, you're going to face too much of a threat to control by virtue of those horrible British people, the awful British press, and the nasty colonialist royal family. Therefore, do not go. And thus she stays away. She's made no effort to allow her children to experience the culture of Britain, given that Archie is British by birth and they both have a British father. She's made no attempt to endear herself to people in Britain after her ghastly behaviour towards British people and about the nation as a whole. But naturally, the hypocrisy of this one's wife as a narcissist comes to bear when it's about making money. Because as per the British-based creative gifting service Colford, this one's wife is now distributing her wares in the United Kingdom. And I take that with a huge pinch of salt. I think it's just another case of some publicity and grifting going on. Colford, which describes itself online as delivering brand expressions through the language of gift giving, posted an Instagram carousel showing As Ever's distinctly packaged spread, being delivered by white-gloved butlers in suits. A pleasure to assist at Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, in spreading jam and joy amongst friends in the UK, read the caption. Our white-glove chauffeur service facilitated a seamless handover at every doorstep. Well, there might be the appropriateness of utilising Colford for high-end gifts and for something special on a particular occasion, but having them delivering some shitty spread created by this narcissist is not one of them. And it demonstrates once again how out of touch this one's wife is in respect of the way that she markets this product. Can you really believe that someone would want to spend, first of all, an elevated, not with mint, amount on the spread to begin with, and then decide, well, do you know what? I'm going to pay an increased amount so that colford.co.uk can have, in essence, a butler wearing white gloves deliver it to my friend. Accordingly, this one's wife has utilised the services of Colford and then makes sure that this is boasted about in a supine publication such as Tatler. But what is it that Colford actually does? Well, they engage in gift design and production, gift sourcing, packaging development, gift wrapping, and curated delivery. There's that word again. They do activation and events, content creation, network introductions, stationery and personalization, styling, and VM. They have done work for Hermes, Cartier, Burlington Arcade, Berghaus, Selfridges, Adidas, Stella McCartney, Beg & Co, Dior, Park Hyatt NYC, and, funnily enough, Soho House. It was created by Imogen Beresford and Nathan Cole back in 2023. Essentially, it seems to me that what you can do is either ask them to find a gift from a particular supplier, wrap it in a particularly stylish and inventive way, and then have it delivered. So it makes something special in terms of perhaps the gift itself, how it's presented, how it's wrapped, and how it's delivered. And certainly for high-end gifts, one can see that this adds an extra flourish to it. But for delivering spread, no. But this is the nature of this one's wife. She just doesn't have a clue. She doesn't get it. She thinks that her product is so special that it should be delivered in the keepsake packaging by a butler. And as you can see from the thumbnail, there it is being carried by some poor unfortunate who has to then deliver it. And I believe in this case, it was delivered to the toady weather presenter Alex Beresford, who had defended this one's wife when Piers Morgan quite rightly pointed out the lies of this one's wife. The article then speculates about who else might have received a white-gloved knock on their front door and suggests it's reasonable to assume that Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank might have been sent a jar or two. And then possibly designer Misha Nonu might have received one also. The others on this one's wife's select list might include Tiggy Pettifer, Princes Harry and William's former nanny, who is godmother to Archie, and that quite possibly Archie's godfather, Charlie van Straubenzee, along with Violet von Westenholz, who introduced Harry and this one's wife, as well as George Northwood, the Duchess's longtime pal who styled her hair for a wedding reception, and Sarah Chapman, the high-end facialist who's worked with this one's wife since 2017. It also queries whether Mies and Harriman might have got a jar, and it might be that there'll be a few choice A-list friends. For instance, Sabrina Elba, Idris Elba's wife, might receive one, and that it might also be the case that Elton John and James Blunt would receive them. So this almost reads like a paid advertisement for Colford and for this one's wife's spread, that it speculates on who might receive it just because Alex Beresford did, and that Colford advertised the use of their service. As I mentioned, this one's wife doesn't have a clue, and it's smoke and mirrors. None of those people listed have confirmed that they've received a white-gloved knock on the door and received some of this atrocious spread. But once again, this one's wife, rather than actually having anything you can buy, is spending her time getting it the wrong way around by wanting to show off about her product by saying, look, you too can have it delivered to you by somebody wearing white gloves. Well, in actual fact, anybody calling with this spread ought to be wearing a white coat to take you away, ha ha, he he, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all day long, which is clearly where this one's wife belongs. Another stint of publicity from this one's wife. Her atrocious product being elevated, this time through the delivery services of Colford. But really, who is going to use it for that ridiculous spread? And once again, it's just self-indulgent pap issued as a PR puff piece through a supine publication such as Tatler, which then spends its time speculating on who might receive these gifts via Colford & Co. without any evidence whatsoever that it's actually happened. More performative shite from this one's wife, who simply doesn't have a clue. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.